Deep in the silence of a forgotten forest, something was waiting. Something that millions of people recognized instantly, but nobody had seen for years. A Minecraft creeper van. One of the most iconic builds ever put on four wheels. Completely swallowed by the forest. Completely invisible to the world. And completely, absolutely beyond saving. Or so everyone thought. We had no idea what we were walking into when we got the call.
All right, get the strap positioned under the frame.
Tension on the main cable looks stable. Go ahead and secure the latch.
All that moss and decay was worth fighting for. But the moment we saw that face, those two dark square eyes staring at us through the green, we knew. Some things are too legendary to leave behind. Strap in, because this is the full story of how we brought the creeper back. The call came in at dawn. A location. Coordinates deep in a forest that nobody had reason to enter. Our team didn't know what we were looking for. Only that it was big, it was green, and it had been there for a very long time that we had heard about this van. Whispers on the internet. Blurry photographs. Coordinates passed between people who collected secrets like other people collected stamps. A Minecraft creeper van. Custom built. One of a kind. And then one day, gone. Like it had never existed, nobody knew who left it there. Nobody knew how long it had been sitting in that clearing. The forest had moved in around it the way forests always do. Patiently, methodically, without mercy. Moss first. Then ivy. Then the roots found the undercarriage and decided to stay. The forest does not ask permission. It simply takes. The undercarriage told the worst of the story. Roots had worked their way up through the wheel arches and deep into the chassis rails. Not small roots. Thick ones, the kind that take years to grow to that diameter. This van had not moved in a very long time. The earth had begun to swallow it from underneath. Our lead technician crouched in front of the van for a long time without speaking. He pressed one hand flat against the square pixel pattern on the hood and left it there. The moss was cold and wet. And it had grown so thick in places that you could not feel the metal beneath it at all. The whole team assembled around it in silence. Five people who had restored engines, rebuilt chassis, and fabricated body panels from nothing. And every single one of them stood in that clearing with their hands in their pockets, looking at this van like they were looking at something that should not exist. Something the world had lost and somehow kept secret. The documentation process took 2 full hours before we touched a single thing. We photographed every panel. We measured every surface. The moss depth, in some sections, was 9 centimeters thick. 9 centimeters of living material growing directly on what was once one of the most recognizable custom paint jobs ever put on a vehicle. The interior was a different world entirely. Whatever had been inside this van when it was abandoned had been replaced by the forest's own furniture. Leaves packed 2 inches deep on the floor. Mushrooms growing from the seat foam. And in the far corner, an abandoned bird's nest sitting on the dashboard as if it had always been there. As if the forest had moved in and redecorated. The rear doors were the last thing we opened on that first day. There is always a moment in this work where you find out whether what you are dealing with is worth saving, or whether you are standing in front of something that should have been left alone. We grabbed both handles.
The rust penetration is deeper than anticipated here on the driver's side.
Confirmed. The electrical systems are compromised at the firewall. We'll need to reroute.
The recovery operation took the rest of that day and most of the next morning. The trees were close. The forest did not want to give it back. When the crane took the first load of tension and the straps went tight, the van trembled. Not from the mechanical force, from the roots. Every root that had worked its way into that undercarriage held on for just 1 second longer than the forest had any right to expect. And then, one by one, they let go, and then it was out. Clear of the trees. standing in the open air with a full sky above it. And in that daylight, for the first time without the shadows and the mist and the cold filtered light of the forest, you could see exactly what it was. What it had been. What, with everything we had, we were going to make it again. The journey to the workshop was 40 minutes on the motorway. We had a support vehicle following the flatbed the entire way. Not because we were worried about the van falling off, but because none of us could stop watching it. Even on the back of a truck, covered in moss, missing its windows, it had presence. It always had presence. The workshop had handled a lot of arrivals over the years. A lot of broken things brought in on nothing but promises and stubbornness. But when those doors opened and the flatbed started lowering that van to the floor, even the mechanics who had been working at the back put their tools down and walked over. Because there are some arrivals you simply have to witness in person. Under workshop lights you see everything. There is nowhere for damage to hide in a space like that. And what those lights showed us was worse in some places than we had feared, and better in others than we had any right to hope. The body panels were intact. All of them. Dented. Corroded. But intact. The bones of this build were still solid. The damage assessment took 4 full hours. By the time we had cataloged everything, the whiteboard was full. New windshield. New tires. Full engine rebuild. Complete wiring harness. Chassis treatment. Body panel work. Full repaint. And then the interior build, the part that we all knew would take longer than everything else combined. The pressure washing was first. It always is. You cannot assess what you are truly dealing with until you remove what the world put on
Masking
top
the
of
pixel
it.
pattern took 3 days.
The first jet
3
hit
full
the
days
creeper
of measuring,
face at
cutting,
4,000
applying, and
psi.
checking. Every square in the
The
pattern had
moss
to be
did not
exactly the
peel
right
away.
size.
It detonated. And through the explosion of green and water, the first flash of pixel paint appeared that we attacked every surface simultaneously. 4 pressure washers. 4 operators. Working from the roof down on all 4 sides at once. The workshop floor became a river of green. The smell was extraordinary. Cold earth and metal and something that had been compressed underground for a very long time, finally breathing again for the first time in years, and then, for the first time in what may have been 20 years, the pixel pattern was back. Green squares and black squares on every panel exactly as they were designed.
We've got the gaming thrones here, the LED panels along the walls, and the command center right up front. It's gonna be insane.
Completely, absolutely recognizable. The creeper van had been in there the entire time. Waiting for us to find it. One of our team members walked up to the front of the van after the washing was done and put her hand flat on the creeper face. Not to check anything. Not to measure anything. She just wanted to touch it. To confirm with her own hands that it was real. That those pixel eyes staring back at her had actually survived everything the forest threw at them. Deconstruction began at 7 the next morning. The van went up on the 4-post lift and every removable component started coming off. Wheels first. All 4 were flat, not just deflated, but structurally compromised. The tire walls had cracked and split from years of weight bearing without movement. The forest had been pressing down on them the entire time. The interior strip took a full day. Layer by layer, every component came out. What had once been custom gaming seats came out as collapsed foam frames barely holding their shape. The floor panels revealed 2 inches of compressed organic material sitting directly on the bare metal, a compressed record of every single rainfall that had come through those broken windows. The engine bay was the moment of truth.
All right, keep it steady on your side.
Clear. Starting the first bolt now.
Good. Now let's torque these down to spec.
The hood came up, and every person in the workshop who was not already at the van walked over. Because this engine had not just seized. It had been colonized. Nature had moved in and made itself completely at home. Removing the engine took most of a morning. The mount bolts had fused to their threads with rust so complete that in 2 cases we had to drill them out entirely. When it finally came free and the hoist lifted it clear of the bay, the sound it made was not mechanical. It was the sound of something that had held on as long as it possibly could, finally letting go. With the engine out, the bay became the first space we could clean to bare metal. High-pressure degreaser, wire brushes, angle grinders on the worst of the rust. Layer by layer, the bay went from a black organic nightmare to raw silver metal. 6 hours of work. At the end of those 6 hours, it looked like a brand new cavity, waiting to be filled with something worthy of it. The chassis went on the rotisserie next. Full rotation. Every centimeter of the underside exposed to light for probably the first time since it was manufactured. The rust was surface level on most of the rails, not structural, not catastrophic, but active. Spreading. The kind that had already decided where it was going next and was simply waiting for more time to get there. Every removable body panel came off and went through the sandblasting cabinet. Abrasive media at high velocity does to rust and old paint what pressure washing does to moss. It removes time itself. The panels went in old. They came out new. Or as close to new as old metal can come when someone decides it deserves to be treated that way. The two chassis sections that needed reinforcement were cut back to good metal and new steel was welded in.
It's gonna be insane.
Our fabricator works without rushing. He measures 3 times. He positions once. And when that arc strikes and the weld begins, there is no sound in the workshop except the hiss of the welder and the static of the metal fusing. Everything else stops when the welding starts. The bodywork was what most people watching would call the meditative part. Dent pulling, panel beating, filler application, blocking. Slow, repetitive, essential. The difference between a panel that looks restored and a panel that looks new. Our panel man worked each surface until his bare hand could slide across it without catching on a single imperfection. Every time. High build primer across every surface. Gray and uniform and completely covering every repair. A prime vehicle always looks unfinished, but underneath that gray, underneath every carefully applied coat, is the record of everything that was done to get here.
Careful through the door.
Every hour.
Slide it back.
Every decision.
Right there.
Every moment where someone chose not to cut a corner. The new engine build was already underway on the other side of the workshop while the body was being prepared. We were not rebuilding the original. The original was beyond economic repair. Instead, we had sourced a period-correct replacement unit, and were building it to a specification significantly better than anything this van had ever left the factory with. Because it deserved better than it originally had, every component went in by specification. Torque wrench on every single fastener. Gap measurements checked on every bearing. Clearances verified on every seal. The people who build engines like this are not mechanics. They are closer to watchmakers. Except the watch they are building will produce real horsepower and needs to survive 30 years of serious use. The wiring harness was completely new. Every wire. Because this van was not going to carry standard wiring. It was going to power a gaming setup that pulled more current than most houses. The planning had started in parallel with the strip down, every circuit mapped, every load calculated, every route through the body planned before a single wire was cut. The paint was the conversation that consumed most of a week. Because the Minecraft creeper green is not one color. It is 7 separate shades arranged in a precise pixel grid that covers every single panel. Getting those 7 greens to look correct under every lighting condition, natural, LED, tungsten, sodium, was a challenge. Our paint technician. We programmed them with custom Minecraft creeper animations as the default state. When those walls activated for the first time and the interior filled with green pixel light, the inside of the van became a direct extension of the outside. The whole vehicle became one unified object. The gaming thrones were custom, built to look like command chairs in a Minecraft stronghold. When you sat in one with the LED walls running and the screens on.
Surprise.
It's alive. Yes, we did it. Woo! Listen to her run.
Look at what it became. A van the forest swallowed whole. Roots through the axles. Mushrooms in the seats. 20 years of silence. We dragged it out. Stripped it to bones. Rebuilt every single system from nothing, and painted 7 shades of green back onto it square by square until the legend returned. The Creeper van is back. Better than it has ever been in its entire existence. If this build moved you, tell us in the comments. What moment got